I think one thing we realized is that people in crypto are just here to have fun. And, trading perps is one kind of fun, but there's a lot of other kinds of fun that turns out appeals to a lot more people.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and is not investment, legal, or financial advice. Opinions are those of the host and guests and do not reflect any affiliated entities. Investing involves risk, and past performance is not indicative of future results. The host and guests may hold positions in discussed securities. Now, please enjoy the show. Ilja and Richard, thank you so much for joining me today. Super excited to chat with you guys. All right, you guys are the co-founders of Tensor and Vector. Ilja, I believe you're a self-taught coder, and your background is a mixture of TradFi and startups. You were involved in startups such as GoCardless and Calypso AI. Richard, you have a similar background with tech and finance. You were at Google, Citadel, and also you did a pretty good stint at Two Sigma as well. So obviously extremely impressive. But take me all the way back. Take me back from when you guys were pre-product, pre-idea. I believe you guys met online. Were you guys meeting in some sort of forum or like what was it? Discord? Was it Telegram? Like how'd you guys connect?
We did meet online. We met through YC, co-founder matching. It's kind of dating for nerds, like Tinder for nerds. And the most important thing you look at when you're doing dating for nerds is actually not the photos, it's the GitHub profile. So both of us had some stuff on GitHub. We thought it was interesting, both interested in crypto. And then Richard reached out and we kind of started talking. Then started building things together online, and then eventually decided we're a good co-founder match, I guess. And I moved to Canada. We started Tensor together. And then I guess 3 years later, here we are.
That's crazy. Okay, so Richard, what was your, when Ilja and you guys were chatting, what were some of the early ideas that you guys were noodling on? Because I'm sure that you guys are in this YC co-founder matching thing, so there's a lot of ideas floating around. What were some of the unsuccessful, or not actually unsuccessful, just the ideas that you thought about but didn't pursue? Anything wacky?
There are definitely a lot of wacky ideas that we considered. I think going into this space for the first time and, doing your first startup and maybe first startup in crypto in general, you sort of like fall into this trap of getting maybe a little nerd sniped. So initially, the reason why we got into NFTs, as opposed to something like maybe more closer to our background, which is like fintech and maybe finance, like TradFi, which you might consider, you might think that we would go into DeFi. We actually chose NFT because we felt like there was a lot of space to build the core financialization primitives for NFTs. And actually, early on, we actually took a lot of inspiration from your. I think you did a couple of blog posts on NFT financialization, and so we actually took a lot of interesting ideas from sort of your writing and a bunch of other people's writing. And so our first idea that we worked on was an NFT pricing oracle. We knew that oracles were important in any DeFi primitive. Lending protocols, perps, fractionalization, all that stuff required an oracle. And we felt like we should be building that fundamental piece of NFT DeFi. The issue is, at least at the time on Solana and even Ethereum, there were maybe like 5.5 protocols that actually needed an oracle. And one of them ultimately ended up paying us for it. And so like after 2 months of doing that, we just decided to pivot quickly. So that was actually our first successful pivot, is to not try to build a business around providing an NFT pricing oracle. We basically like fumbled around with a bunch of ideas in our head, workshop them. But ultimately we just decided that we should go after the biggest pie, which was building an NFT aggregator and eventually a marketplace. And so that's how we ended up building Tensor, the marketplace.
I have actually some really funny context to share. So when we met and we did work on the Oracle at first, at one point I was like, hey, what if we tried applying to this accelerator called Alliance? And it was called DeFi Alliance at the time. And the only reason I knew about DeFi Alliance, I told you this in the answer, is because I actually listened to your episode with Will. And I was kind of like, I really like what he said. He was saying like so many things that were like, just very smart, just like a very smart dude and like very deep into gaming. And I was like, hey, what if we apply to this thing? And we did apply. And when we got in, Chao, who's one of the founders, he was like, okay, you guys are a great founding team, but your idea is complete shit. You got to work on something else. And that's how we pivoted.
That's crazy. That's so cool. Well, yeah, I'm very happy to have, had any sort of impact at all. And super cool for me to hear that. But yeah, I mean, the Alliance guys are absolute geniuses. Had Will on the podcast way back when. And yeah, I was blown away by the conversation as well. I was like, oh my gosh, like Alliance is going to do huge things. I already knew of them, of course, and yeah, it was DeFi Alliance, early on, but like to see where they started and where they are now is just is massive and incredible. But all right, so you know, Richard, you did mention, you considering our backgrounds, I'm also surprised you guys didn't go into DeFi because I would think that, okay, you guys are both TradFi experience and Ilya, you have a little more startup experience, but still you were in TradFi as well. And what was the thought process? You're like, hey, there's too much competition in DeFi and, NFTs are kind of a wide open space, or what was that thought process?
It was really going after something unique, something where we felt like we had a unique insight into. So if you think about it, like if you're the 10th or if you're the 100th guy going into a space where everyone kind of have a similar background, you probably don't have that many unique insights. But if you are maybe someone who worked in finance and went into NFTs of all things, then you probably have some interesting insights that the other NFT builders aren't bringing to the table. And we felt like we had exactly that, which is we looked at the NFT marketplace space. And we saw that every single one of these, the big NFT marketplaces, so it was OpenSea at the time on ETH, and then it was Magic Eden on Solana. And we just saw from their interface that they were completely unoptimized for the trader archetype. They were mainly, skeuomorphic when it came to copying what eBay's interface looked like, which was optimized for collectors. They were completely missing the entire market of traders. And we knew from sort of our experience in TradFi that the pros or the institutions dominate volumes. The top 10% make up 90% of the volume in most markets, if not all markets. And we could build a very big business by just catering to this niche of pro traders. And so that's a unique insight we came to market with. And, in hindsight, it worked out for us. And I think if we went into DeFi with very straightforward vanilla ideas that we would take from TradFi, we probably would have not made it very far.
And did you guys come up with the idea of this pro trading NFT platform while in Alliance? And were there other, how was that ideation process? Were you guys spitballing and kind of came to the same conclusions, or, tell me about that like initial bubbling up of Tensor, the pro trading platform?
Yeah, basically when we finished building the Oracle, what we really had was a real-time backend that was ingesting a lot of the data, both on-chain and off-chain, for NFTs specifically. And at the time, it was both Solana and ETH. And you could almost like look at that point, and you can like go vertically or you can go horizontal. You can either say, okay, let's just build more data stuff, or let's go more vertical and let's build more trading stuff, but for the same asset class, which is NFTs. And we mapped out like 2, 3 ideas, kind of this like faster pro marketplace being one of them. There's like a data platform. There are a few other ideas around NFTs. And I just remember it was like a Sunday and we're just like chatting on Slack. And I just told Richard, I'm like, you just want to work on the marketplace, don't you? And he was like, yeah, I kind of want to work on the marketplace. So we just like, just do it then. It was like intuition. And honestly, if you look at our founding journey, I think a lot of the decisions we made were just that. It was just like intuition. Is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? And then let's learn from it and move on.
Tell me about the process of Alliance. Because it's a little bit mysterious to me. I know they support in many ways, but I just don't know the actual inner process. What is it like? Are they meeting with you guys and helping you on the idea, or helping you with engineering questions, or kind of what does that flow like?
Yeah, I think it is very different depending on the startup. It's really a take what you can get, or it's maybe a better word for that is a phrase for that is make of it what you will. Where if you are constantly asking for feedback, if you're asking for calls to talk about a strategy or a decision point, Chow and Imran and the rest of the team are very open to doing that. Like they're truly one of the most founder friendly accelerators and firms out there, and they have just the best network and connections in Web3 by far. Like I would say YC, which is probably the best accelerator based on their track record. They have nowhere near the connections and thoughtfulness as Chow and Enron does at Alliance. And so it was a no brainer to go with them to join their accelerator versus let's say YC. The other thing is I wouldn't say they necessarily give you advice like engineering, how do you build good engineering or how do you like engineer good products? Because I think that's stuff you can learn elsewhere. But what they're really useful for is they can help you connect with the right person from the right place, like instantly. For example, our lead investor, Chris Berniski, they made the intro to him. Chris Berniski was literally the only check we got during the depths of the bear market shortly after FTX. And without that intro, I'm not even sure if Tensor or Vector would be around because we were literally on our last legs trying to close a round. So it's like these little moments where serendipity, being in the right place at the right time and having the right person backing you matters a lot. And I would say Alliance, Chow, and Imran and the rest of the team, they're exactly that.
That's so cool. All right, so tell me about the early days of after you launched Tensor. Because what year was this? Or sorry, what month?
21, I want to say, or 2022. 22 was when we went public.
Was it earlier 22?
Yeah, it was like,
So the market was still booming.
yeah, the market was just about starting to decline.
Cool. Okay, so tell me about those early days. Did you have to fight to get customers? Were you just tweeting and customers would come? And also, what was were things breaking all the time? Was it chaos? Or tell me the first few weeks or months after the launch of Tensor.
The launch was actually less eventful than you would think. That's not uncommon for teams like us that had no customers, no background, no reputation, no nothing, 500 followers on Twitter. And who's going to go check out your product? The fact that you have 13 customers is a blessing. So it's not like there was a lot of stuff breaking. It was very quiet. But the one thing we did have going for us was the fact that we chose to build on Solana. And at the time, Solana was kind of the contrarian bet, especially around FTX collapsing. And so there was this like weird thing where like the people that did choose to stay got a lot of attention and got a lot of support from the community. Like at one point, Solana called us and they said, "Okay, look, we know you're doing this. Do you want to have like 2 bare metal machines to like run your own RPCs completely free?" You just wouldn't happen anywhere else, right? They're like so incentivized to like support good teams, and so I think that worked in our favor. But honestly, for the first 6 to 12 months, it was very quiet. We're like fighting for every customer and trying to survive, and then basically after a couple of successful product decisions, like people really started flocking to the product. And I remember like we couldn't believe we're like a 10% market share, then 20, then 30. And then there's this running joke like, oh yeah, one day we'll flip Magic Eden. And then 2 weeks later we did.
That's crazy. Okay, so relatively quick success. I mean, there's a lot of people in crypto that grind for like years and years and years. You guys have been ideating for a while, but the actual launch went, would you say, broadly like pretty amazingly? Like, broadly speaking, how would you rate it?
So everything in crypto seems like an overnight success. In reality, most of them are not. So we launched in July 2022. Launched as in like we opened it up and we had beta users coming in. We had 1,000 guys by the end of that year, like literally just 1,000 people showing up. We were like at 1% market share. And it wasn't until February or I guess March of 2023, that's when we started picking up our stride. And that's when we sort of started eclipsing market share. But we had a pretty dark time right before February, which is when, our market share started going like a hockey stick. We actually considered like completely pivoting out of NFTs because we just felt like we were down to our 1 or 2 remaining options, which was like, hey, do we lean into a leaderboard? Do we lean into a point system and try to bootstrap this marketplace, try to get enough momentum so that we can have liquidity so that both buyers and sellers continue showing up? Or do you just pivot out of the marketplace business entirely? And so I would say like Tensor probably wouldn't have existed if we didn't decide to basically give it that one last hurrah, lean into the point system, and try to win some market share from the incumbents. So yeah, definitely not an overnight success. The initial launch was not an overwhelming success. It was like a slow, steady growth, and then a very dark period, and then one last push to get us over the line.
So I have this kind of broader thesis on basically every consumer application on the internet is going to be gamified. And I think primarily that gamification is going to happen through crypto rails because the most engaging things are money or like involving some sort of value. So NFTs and tokens are great. Tell me about your thoughts on the gamification, because you guys were like, man, we're grinding here. We built this great product. How do we get users over here? And you guys said you developed this point system, which I guess you launched right before the hockey stick growth. Could you tell me about that gamification that you guys were thinking about and ideating on?
Yeah. So funnily enough, you mentioned that And that's where Will came into play. We were like reading all these gamification books at the time and doing calls as well of like, hey, how do we build a game? Um, I think one thing we realized is that people in crypto are just here to have fun. And trading perps is one kind of fun, but there's a lot of other kinds of fun that turns out appeals to a lot more people. So NFTs is, similar to meme coins, by the way, the long tail asset class. And what's fun about that asset class is the diversity, is the craziness, is the community, is the raids, is all of that. And I think we started building Tensor the product in a way that it would make like exploring that asset class very fun. For example, there was a page where you could specifically go and browse trades very visually, and people really loved it. It was like one of the most visited pages because you could go and like explore this collection in a whole different way and find these like rares. And, people love that kind of stuff, hunting for rares, underpriced. And then we introduced this chart, for example, where it was like rarity versus price to access. And we colored the chart. So if the item was more rare, it would be red. And then if it would be like less rare, it'd be gray. And again, it was just a very visual way of consuming information that people really liked. And actually, Vector is very similar. It's a very similar product in that it's for the long tail assets. It's helping people explore them in new ways. In this case, we're leaning heavily into social signals because that's really what people care for when they trade meme coins. But it's a similar thesis of like, look, finance is just becoming a lot more fun. It's starting to feel a lot more like a game. Somebody's going to build a gigantic company by basically building the next World of Warcraft MMORPG, but based on assets. And we're hoping to beat that company.
That's super interesting. Okay, so I want to expand on that. So like right now we're talking points, we're talking levels, we're talking screens that are very digestible and color coded to make the information easier for people to understand. Where do you think what is the ultimate, you mentioned World of Warcraft, like World of Warcraft of Robin Hood or whatever, right? Like that'd be crazy. Where does this go from here? Or where do we go from here? And what is the end state in your opinion?
I think social finance, that's really the thesis that we're testing, proving out with Vector. I think that is this next generation's and future generations form of Netflix or TikTok. Yes, they will still be using TikTok, they'll still be using Instagram, but social finance, now that crypto is gaining more adoption, the friction is decreasing exponentially every single year with new innovations like embedded wallets, being able to log in with your email, and being able to use like a mobile native app like Vector to instantly trade any coin on any chain. The friction is gone, and it's just a matter of finding the right form factor that enables people to participate in this activity that all humans are partial towards, which is speculation, betting on ideas, betting on attention. If you think about the difference between stocks and meme coins and NFTs, the issue with stocks for retail is that it requires like almost a finance background. Like you can't just like start trading Apple and Tesla and expect to make money because the 50 other hedge funds out there have way more information and way more alpha than you do as a retail person. And there's no way to compete in that world if you want to speculate on, Tesla or Apple. But what you can do as a retail person is speculate on TikTok trends. You are by far more knowledgeable and have more alpha than the guy sitting at, a big investment bank, who doesn't touch TikTok, who's not at all familiar with the latest hot trends on social media. But you can bet on that with attention assets. And I think that is a complement to where the world's going, which is everyone is on social media and they want to, have a bit of fun, get a bit of a dopamine kick by speculating on this stuff.
No, that's awesome. I mean, we see with the meme stock craze and then crypto, you could kind of argue a lot of crypto has been meme stock-ish since, the very early days, but now we've kind of taken it to its ultimate endpoint, which is meme coins. But going back to NFTs, at what point were you guys thinking, okay, we made this great gamification system. We're getting a lot of usage because you guys just exploded in usage. What changed? Were you guys like, okay, hey, we built a great product, built a great mousetrap for to keep people coming and keep people engaged, but the overall NFT market is just struggling and the volumes are going down. So we need to make a major shift here because that was to go from where you guys were to pivoting. That's a huge decision. So tell me about that process.
It's basically what you said, which is we looked at the market and we just couldn't see how it would sustain the kind of company we want to build. And at that point, you really have two choices. Do you play it safe and hope the market fixes itself, or do you just go and fix your company? And I think just maybe the way we think about the world, the second felt better to us. You could be sitting there for 10 years waiting for the market to fix itself. And then what? So yeah, we just decided we're going to pivot. And once the funny thing is, once we decided we're going to pivot, it was not like, okay, can we like build like an addition to the existing product and like make it a little better? Because we were like, that's going to be like the worst outcome, which is hodgepodge now. Some of our competitors have done that, and I don't think it's working out for them. Um, Instead, we were like, look, what like blank sheet of paper. What's the best product we can imagine right now? And the answer for us was, well, there's no good mobile trading product right now. So why don't we go explore that? And when we started exploring that, the question was we were asking ourselves repeatedly was, what is mobile really good at? What is mobile really good at? Desktop is really bad at. And the answer really came back in some combination of social and notifications and alerts. Like those are like the things you can uniquely do on mobile that are kind of hard to do on desktop. Everything else, like the charts and the pro tools and the tables and all of that, mobile is actually pretty bad at. And so you kind of don't want to be doing that on mobile. And then that's when we started to lead into all these like social ideas. Just listening to our customers being like, oh, okay, you want to share a trade with your friends? Like, what might that look like? And along the way, what we noticed was that people who were using social features were retaining like 10x better. And that was a very clear signal to us that, okay,
Actually 10x better, or you're just saying like 10x?
just a lot better, just a lot better, not actually 10x
I
better.
was like, that's insane, but yeah, okay.
But I will say, like people who broadcast 5 times or more on the app, even after 30 days, retain 70-80%. That's like insane. So yeah, like just leaning into that really heavily and saying, okay, what if this is no longer a trading product where social is a small component of it? What if this is actually now a social product? And trading is just the way you are social in this weird world of Web3.
Yeah, it's super crazy. I mean, the thoughts and theses that you guys had to dig into in order to have the confidence to make that move is pretty crazy. But I guess I could see the early inklings of that within the NFT market itself. It's like a lot of it is social consensus. It's like this art, like, is this art valuable? Like, is people art worth $1 million, or is it worth 10 bucks? And really it's like the social signals that you're getting from that. So you guys decided, okay, you guys had this kind of social finance, social trading thesis. And at what point we were like, okay, we're going to make the full shift. Like we're shutting this down. We're going to go full, just like full bore on this other idea. Yeah. How was the state of the current business and yeah, that shift or that change? What was that decision like?
When Trump mania happened, which was I think 2 weekends ago or a week ago, we had a $25 million a day volume on Vector. And mind you, this app is still in invite only mode. We had about 20,000 people on the app at the time, instead of 100,000, which we could easily get to maybe in a month or two. And we did $25 million in volume. For comparison, I think the NFT market at the time, overall, right, across all the chains, was about $20 million a day. And so we literally saw more volume on Vector than the entire NFT market during that period of time. That sort of goes to show the market size difference between this new market of meme coins and fungible attention assets versus our existing market, the NFTs. We think it's definitely 100x bigger because we're just one trading app amongst many other trading apps out there for meme coins. And we think that there is so much room for us to grow into. We're barely at 2-3% market share. I think we can easily get to 50% market share, just like we did with the NFT marketplace.
So what are your thoughts around why these meme coins and non-meme coins, just kind of these more, I guess, esoteric alts, we can say, why have they taken such mind share and market share compared to NFTs? Because NFTs were the early meme coins of 21 and 22, right? So in your opinion, what shifted? What changed?
I think there's two answers to that question. The first answer is crypto people like to play games, and games get tiring over time, so they need a new game every like basically 4 years. That's the reality. Like a lot of people get burned on NFTs. The next cycle, people trade anything but NFTs, and then the cycle after they can trade NFTs again. I think that's just how crypto goes. But there's another answer that's a little more nuanced, and that is NFTs have always been a little bit confusing in that they kind of have two meanings. One is it's a speculative asset, but the second one is it's a bit of a trophy, like it's the luxury item you show off with. And that creates a little bit of a confusion of what to do with the asset. And like many people, like the whole thing, like I'm going to hold this till forever, never selling my Mad Lad, like that kind of thing. Shitcoins are simpler in that nobody pretends they're holding dog with had because it's their identity. It's like, yeah, I'm here for one reason, and that's to sell higher than I bought. And that makes everything a lot simpler. And combine that with like much deeper liquidity and just much less friction to get in and out of positions, and people just like it. It's just a more fun game.
So it's almost just like the most efficient speculative asset is going to win in the crypto markets. Is that like a fair thing to say?
I don't know if efficient is the right word, but yeah, like efficiency is part of it. But I think what's going to win is a combination of efficiency and fun. That's how I would put it.
Interesting. Okay. So yeah, no, that's super interesting. Okay, so if you're at a cocktail party and you're surrounded by people that are not in crypto, how do you talk about Vector? Like, what like, you're like, hey, this thing we built is this.
It is the best place to trade memes with your friends. So
Memes.
if you've heard of, Iggy coin, if you've heard of the Trump coin, even if you've heard of like with Bonk, some of the blue chips, and you want to figure out like, oh, why can't I trade this on Coinbase? Why isn't it not listed on Coinbase? Why is it not listed on Binance? Where do I find this? Like, what is the easiest way to just buy some of this because I think it's funny and I want to, speculate on it? Then you download Vector. When you download Vector, you're logging in with an email or Twitter or Google or Apple Wallet. So very standard methods. You sign in and you automatically have a wallet provisioned for you. You can instantly on-ramp with a credit card with Apple Pay or Google Pay using WinPay in the app, and you instantly have money to buy your favorite meme coins. But I think the kicker, and this is what differentiates Vector from all of these other trading apps, is the social component. So the biggest thing with like maybe someone who has completely never touched crypto on chain before is like, what do I do? Like, how do I even like what should I be looking for? What should I be buying? And you probably ask your friend, right? You probably ask someone who is maybe deeper into crypto, someone who's been like, trading NFTs since 2021. And you ask them like, hey, should I be buying Trump coin? Should I be buying WITH? Should I be buying Bonk? Yes, you could do that and you can like DM them and be annoying. Or you could just like ask them like, hey, can I get an invite to Vector? I'll just follow you. I'll subscribe to you. And whenever you make a trade, I can see that instantly as a push notification. And maybe I can decide like, hey, do I want to trade with my close friend who is very deep into crypto? So that's the power of Vector, is you're not stranded. You're not just playing single player mode and getting wrecked by, maybe the guys who have more information than you, who's much deeper. You're actually trading with your friend who might be that insider person who you can rely on.
That's very cool. Are you able to show kind of a walkthrough of the app?
Yeah, basically this is what Vector looks like. Like we said, it's this weird combination of a trading product and a social product. So this is the trading part. The screen is kind of very similar to what you would find on Dex Screener or like your favorite centralized exchange, just a list of tokens. That's all it is. It's multi-chain. We support all these chains, including Abstract and adding Hyperliquid and Sweet and a bunch of others. But right now, let's pick a Solana token, like this Joker token that I'm looking at right now, 140K market cap. The chart looks absolutely terrible, down 94%. Maybe let's pick a different token. Let's pick this. So yeah, this is pretty standard stuff. The kind of things that traders would look at, the audit, whatever data about the token they want to see. But then the fun part begins when you actually buy the token. So in this case, I'm going to ape into $25 worth of this token. And as soon as the trade is done, we offer you to do something called a broadcast. And what a broadcast is, it's basically you sharing your trades with all your followers. You have to leave a message, which is, I think, up to 100 characters. In this case, I'm going to say, I have no idea what I'm doing. Hi, Zima Red. Oh, it's correcting my... there we go. So let's never expire this. And I just posted this broadcast to 150 followers. So anybody who then goes onto my profile that looks like this is gonna see me buying this.
That's so cool.
And so they're gonna see a message that I left, and they're gonna see the chart and how the chart has done ever since I bought it. So let's go to the feed, which is probably the most interesting part of the app.
Wait, and sorry, the broadcasting, you could choose the message to expire 1 hour, 24 hours, 7 days. what's the purpose of the expiry? Like, is there, because like, I don't know, it's, you made an embarrassing trade and you don't want people to be like, hey, Ilya, like I got screwed on that trade. Like, what's that thought process around adding that expiry?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the answer is basically a lot of meme coins go to zero in like 24 hours. And so one of the asks from our traders was, you got to give me a way to like do a broadcast that's only visible for 24 hours, because otherwise all the charts on my profile are going to be red
Right.
forever because it all goes to zero.
Right.
And so that was like an explicit feature that we added because of that.
Makes sense. Cool.
This is actually a pretty good example. So let's say Christian was trading here. You can kind of see his initial purchase and he's saying, oh, I'm buying the dip. All these green dots is more purchases. And then he has a sale over here. And the guy's in profit for like $1.5 grand. And so it's like really easy to consume these broadcasts and you're going to see what people are trading. Soul Big Brain is notorious for being at the top of the leaderboard. I don't know how he does it. But like if we scroll through some of his broadcasts, all of which are red right now, but here, this one is green. So look, he made $83,000 on this app, on this one trade. He bought here, all the red dots is him selling, green is him buying more. And you can basically see his thesis and how he played it. And you can see all the reactions that people left. And you can also see like all the comments that people left here.
That's so cool. It's truly, it's like an Instagram, TikTok type of application, but really the entertainment is all around trading, which is such a new. I don't know anyone else that's building something like this. So it's very. I mean, outside of crypto, this doesn't exist at all, as far as I know.
Yeah, social trading products are very hard to build because you're really trying to thread this very thin line of, okay, you can't be fully focused on building a trading product because then the social component doesn't get enough love. But if you go ahead and only focus on the social parts, like you build an Instagram, a Facebook, a Twitter clone, then nobody wants to use it because at the end of the day, people are here to trade. And so we find ourselves in this never-ending struggle on the like road mapping sessions where it's like, okay, what is just enough trading functionality for people to be able to actually make profit on this product? And then what is just enough social functionality for people to actually have a lot of fun on this product?
And what I guess, I mean, the whole thing is kind of gamified, but my question, what I want to ask is, what features do you have that are gamified? I guess right here, weekly P&L rankings. You have the people who've won the most, the people who've lost the most, and the total volume. That's a pretty cool thing because people I think would want to be featured, except for not on this page. They probably don't want to be featured, but on the other ones, it's like, oh, I want to be a known quantity. I want to be, Soul Big Brain's on top. I want to be like Soul Big Brain.
We have, for example, badges. So every time you place high up on this leaderboard, you'll earn a badge for that week. And this badge shows up in your profile. And so you could easily at a glance track how well a profile or person is doing
Very cool.
across all of time. That's like a small way to gamify it. But it actually matters a lot. I think overall, like social and making the two-way interaction more engaging, in a way that's gamification because let's say, I interact with you a bunch and I start copy trading you. And then this is a feature that we're adding in the future, which is tipping. Let's say I just want to, publicly give you a tip for the call that you made. And it shows up in the comment section and you can see like, hey, this person just tipped this person X amount of, TNSR or something. And that feels good, right? It feels like it's a game where you can potentially earn tips based on how interesting or how exciting your broadcasts are.
That's super cool. Are you able to, and now I'm just kind of like spitballing, but would you ever implement a feature where it's like, hey, I don't really trust my skills within meme coins. Soul Big Brain is crushing it. I just want to copy trade him like automatically. Every time that he does something, I want to just copy it, but I don't want to have to be the one actually clicking it. Is that possible?
Yeah. So you see, this is where building consumer products becomes really interesting. What you just described is actually one of the most common feature requests we get. But the problem is, if you actually start to dig deeper into what people are asking for, they're not really asking for a copy trade button. They're asking for a button that makes them money. That's really what they're asking for. They're like, hey, give me this button. I'm going to open your product once. I'm going to click it. And then I'm going to wake up richer the next morning.
Totally.
And the problem is you can't ship that button. That button doesn't exist.
Right.
This is why every single copy trading product ever tried has failed. So what is the answer? The answer is you need to keep people's discretion in the game. Like it needs to be a decision made by the trader to either buy something or sell something. But what you can do is you can give them more signals to make that decision. So for example, you can say, okay, here are 3 people we think you should follow because their success rate over the past 2 weeks has been incredible. And when they trade, we can send them a notification saying, hey, all these 3 people just aped something. Maybe you should ape it. And then when they're selling, you could send them a notification saying, hey, by the way, all of them sold. You should consider selling too. Or maybe a notification like, hey, that token you bought yesterday? It's up 2x. You might want to take out your initial so that worst case, you're as good as you started. All of these little nudges, they don't make you a pro trader, but they make you a better trader. And the whole point of this app is to make you a little better, like for you to learn from the pros. So that's kind of like where our thinking is with like all these really automated ideas. They're just very dangerous because you're promising something to the user you cannot deliver, which is infinite profit.
Totally. So this terminal feed, what are we seeing here?
Yep. So basically the terminal is, we're still experimenting with different form factors in the app. So this page broadcasts that you're looking at is like individual trades posted by individual people. The terminal is more like an aggregate. So this is trades combined from different people on the same chart. So this is almost like scrolling coins, like you would scroll TikTok. And so you can see where people are buying. This is a funny chart. This guy bought right at the top. Poor man. So yeah, this is so this is how it works. And the reason people like this page is because it's very alive. So you see these little like banners at the bottom that are moving. This is basically either broadcasts that are happening on the app or just trades that are happening as you look at the page. So it's like a very kind of like live in the moment view at a given token.
Very cool. So broadcast is more individual, I guess Instagram posts versus terminal is more what is the group doing and thinking and feeling right now.
Exactly.
That's great.
And you see with broadcasts, for example, we have rebroadcasts. So this guy bought Enron and then he bought it based on this guy's broadcast. Right.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then groups. What's the thought process behind groups?
Yeah, this is also another. You realize that we have a lot of experiments going on. Groups is one of the experiments we think will have to exist in the long term. We're still trying to figure it out with the current iteration. But the way to think about groups is if you wanted to only share calls with a couple of your friends, because you don't want that alpha to leak, and you don't want people outside of your close knit group to start copying you on like a 4K market cap coin, because that would be not so great. This is where you can do that. The interesting thing with the current iteration where everything is public is for the popular guys, they actually run into anti-network effects, where the more people that follow them, the more, I guess, the more people that end up copy trading them, and the faster the alpha decays, if that makes sense. And so maybe some of these bigger guys, they don't want to necessarily leak alpha and have a bunch of people buy into it too late and basically get dumped on by other people. And so they might actually choose to broadcast it to a smaller group that they manage. And they might actually progressively broadcast to larger and larger groups until they ultimately make a broadcast publicly.
It's very cool. Okay, so tell me about the thought process, or I guess what you guys have implemented in terms of notifications and any other kind of mobile-based features that you think are interesting or maybe not even created today, but you're thinking about in the future.
Yeah. So notifications is one of those things that mobile is really uniquely good at. And so we leaned very heavily into it. Basically, we have a whole feed that's very similar to Twitter of like stuff happening on the app. And you can always come back and scroll this. And then there's actual like notifications coming into your screen. And really it's all about who you follow and what they do. So like, hey, this guy you follow just bought, they sold, they broadcasted this, they broadcasted that. And they have all kinds of smart notifications. For example, this FOMO alert, like, oh, like Tim bought it and now it's up. Maybe you should look at it more. Or one of my favorite ones is when we say, 3 people that you follow just bought something. That tends to be like a pretty strong signal. I think exploring like basically feels to us that crypto trading and notifications is like a very wide design space that is completely underexplored right now.
How do you guys think of? And sorry, are there any other features that we didn't dive into that you guys want to dig into?
Maybe the earnings stuff. I don't know if we talked too much about that. I think that's one thing that's interesting to Vector. So we have our standard. If you refer a friend, you get a percentage of their fees. And currently, it's 25%.
Wow.
But one thing that's interesting about Vector is because you are sharing specific trades and other people can actually copy your trade, you earn 25% of their fees if they end up copying your trade. And so you actually have this like, instead of just a once and done referral mechanism, and chances are the people who are early gets most of those referral fees, you can actually build a following and earn fees on a recurring basis by just doing good trades and getting people to copy you.
Very cool. So that's a really great incentive, kind of referral system incentive mechanism, or gamification we can call it, in order to keep people highly engaged and also wanting to add in more of their friends and whatnot. And yeah, no, that's super interesting. So I guess that combats the issue that some of these larger players might have with too many people following them, so there's alpha decay. Could that kind of combat that with those referral fees or copy trading, or do you still see, no, like for example, So Big Brain's so popular that even with the added fees that he gets for people kind of copy trading him, there's still alpha decay there?
Biggest way to fix that is groups. When we started this product, our biggest fear was anti-network effects from having too many people on the app. If you hypothetically imagine the entire world joining this product one day, how is alpha going to survive? Because at that point, you're broadcasting a message to a million traders. By definition, you're going to get a Christmas tree chart where everybody apes right after you if you're like a big trader. And then as soon as you sell, everybody sells. And it's, the last guy to open the app is basically holding the bag. And the obvious solution to that is groups. So instead of letting you broadcast to absolutely everybody, you broadcast to 20 friends. And those are the only people that see the broadcast. But here's the really interesting part. You can do a lot of interesting things around groups. First of all, traders already have paid groups. So why can't you introduce subscriptions in this product? What if traders shared a percentage of revenue for all the trades in the group? What if they got a percentage of all the fees that being done in the groups? Basically, you are taking what people are already naturally doing in Web3, which is building these clicks and following alpha callers and these alpha callers trying to make a living from that, and you're productizing that into a simple to use UI that everybody understands and is available on the go. And if we do our job right, then 5 years from now, traders won't even think of doing it anywhere else but here because it's so much simpler and easier and makes them more money.
That's amazing. So I guess if you extend out that potential growth of the groups and whatnot, that the groups could overtake the public facing side of the product potentially. Do you guys think that's possible, or you think that the public side will always have more activity, more users, etc.?
I think the public side is more interesting. That being said, I think groups are more obvious. I think groups are an inevitability. And the question for us is, how do we build an experience that is clearly better than just trading in your Telegram group? Because Telegram by itself, it's a great messaging product. It's one of the best messaging products for groups. And it also has, Telegram bot integrations. And so people are already doing this. How do you give them so much of a reason to actually move off of that existing workflow and try out groups in Vector? That's sort of the big question we're trying to crack with groups on Vector. But in terms of the public feed, we know it's riskier. We know it hasn't been proven out, but we also know if it actually works, then we have this massive social network, this follower graph of people following each other's trade, and it scales much more, much better than groups, where you have to kind of onboard people from their existing groups onto Vector. Instead, you just join the social graph and you're already part of the experience.
So what is the thought? And you guys have launched not too long ago. So, but what is the thought process around not making this a totally open product and making people have invite codes initially, to onboard?
Pretty deliberate strategy. Basically, depending on it's funny, right? I feel first-time founders think there's product and there's go to market as two separate buckets, but I feel once you become a bit more experienced in this building game, you realize that it's actually one of the same. And go to market and product is just one continuum, and you have to build the two in conjunction with each other. So for a product like this, what is the go to market? Well, the most important asset is the social graph. And what you really want is a very dense social graph. So people following each other that know each other. That's how this product becomes useful, because you come onto the app, Andrew, and you have 5 friends that you already know and you trust them. So it's no longer oh, can I really do this? Is this really a good idea? Who is this handsome guy? I don't trust him. But you have 5 friends, you instantly trust them. And so the go-to-market is you need to get people adding their friends as fast as possible and as closely connected as possible. And that's where invite codes come in, because you basically you give people a limited number of bullets each week, and you tell them, hey, go add your 10 best friends. And because they have a limited number of bullets, they're really going to think hard about who should be on the app, and they go add that person. So it's a very intentional design choice. And like people tell us like, oh, you guys should just open the app right now and like get more users in. But what that would do is that would lead to a very sparse graph where the person that joins that doesn't have 5 friends on the product just doesn't find it useful and he instantly churns. It's much better to grow this slower, but really make sure we're saturating the edges of the network as we go.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, but what's the meme? It's like first time founders care about product, second time founders care about distribution. And so, yeah, that's totally accurate. Cool. All right, awesome. Is there any more that you want to share on the screen?
I think that's about it. There's other boring stuff like fast login and signing up without a seed phrase, but I think people can experience that when they play with the product.
Cool. Okay. So, how has it been so far? I mean, you guys have launched and I know it's been a pretty big success, but like tell me about it.
Yeah. I think one thing that's maybe a little surprising to us was how quickly we were able to get people in. I think a lot of that is sort of the intentionality we went into this, where we knew that we had to grow this thing like a social product. And so we got a lot of good advice from folks like Nikita Beer and Andrew Chen. They're sort of the Web 2, the guys who did it really well in Web 2. And Nikita sort of coached us on, hey, you should probably do this invite system this way. And you should probably build your onboarding flow in this certain way so that you can bootstrap off of X's social graph. I think right now the numbers are, 25,000 daily active users. We're doing about $7 to $10 million a day in volume, sort of after the Trump mania. And we're still maintaining 40% retention. Like people are coming back in the long term 40% of the time. And so that's pretty solid. So the strategy for us now is, how do we continue capturing the rest of CT? And then what is sort of the user base that we go after CT? And that's probably folks who've traded crypto, but are mainly on CEXs, like centralized exchanges, because they haven't figured out a nice, friendly way to onboard into crypto or onboard on-chain. And maybe they need some sort of social experience in order to feel comfortable buying, Fartcoin on-chain because, they have a friend who's in the trenches and know what's going on. And then after that, like, do we go after maybe the people who have never touched crypto, but trade stocks and options on Robinhood all day?
Yeah. So, it's funny because with the Trump coin, I had a good friend of mine who was a big sports gambler on DraftKings and whatnot. He messaged me. He's like, hey, man, how do I buy this Trump coin? I was like, honestly, I think, Moonshot's probably the way to go. There's a lot of options, but that's probably easiest. And he was asking me so many questions like, okay, how do I do this? How do I onboard, blah, blah, blah. He's able to do it and buy Trump coin. But then he was asking questions of, hey, like what else is there? But he kept messaging me, texting me like, hey, like what other coins are there? Like, this is awesome. Like, I can't believe that, like, because with sports gambling, it's kind of like your, the upper limit is pretty, I don't know, it's not like you can't 10x or 100x, right? And he was blown away by the potential here. And, but yeah, he kept messaging me and kept being like, hey, like, can you tell me about this? And I was like, man, like I have other things to do, but it really made me realize, okay, so many kind of mainstream quote unquote normies, they have no idea about this world, and getting them onboarded, they would be completely obsessed and completely in love with these products that are being built like Vector. Very cool.
Yeah. One thing to add to that is you almost want to turn this experience into something that's more passive, where it's almost like you're scrolling through an Instagram feed and catching up with what your friends are doing. Instead of like, there's a little bit of friction. Like you don't want to be the annoying friend that constantly asks your crypto friend about like what trades they're making, but you're totally fine just going through their feed, right? If you follow them. And I think that's exactly where we want to take Vector, where just following your crypto friend.
That's awesome. Very cool. All right. So tell me about the Tensor token, because I believe that you guys launched a token with Tensor. And how is that token connected to Vector today, or is it connected to Vector today?
Yeah, for sure. So when we got into crypto, what got us excited was this idea that you can basically build completely decentralized finance and have applications that are owned by their own users. And so, when we built Tensor, the marketplace, we pretty quickly moved towards having a foundation that launches a token. And we just felt it was the right thing to do for users. It was aligned with the ethos. Now, after that, we had to pivot. And so we had this choice of like, okay, what do we do? Do we launch a new token or do we find a way to drive value back to the existing token? And actually, 90% of people told us just launch a new token. Um, we didn't do it. And we didn't do it because it just felt dishonest, towards the existing token holders to just say like, oh yeah, like this whole thing we just don't care about it anymore. And instead we thought, okay, well, what are the products or the ecosystems of products in crypto that we really look up to? And the answer was like ecosystems like Binance, ecosystems like Jupiter, where there's a singular token in the middle, and then there's this, like 5, 10 products around it that are all driving value back to that token. And we thought, well, why can't we build an ecosystem like that? A Tensor ecosystem of products where there's the marketplace, there's the trading app, 5 other products that are going to come in the next 5, 10 years, all of them driving value back to the token. And that excited us a lot more because it's like, okay, cool. Now you're building an empire. You're not trying to build a one trick pony, which is what the marketplace was initially. We're actually building a sustainable empire of different products with different life cycles and different like revenue streams. And so with that, last week, we announced from the Vector app that we're adopting the Tensor token. And what that actually means is that 50% of all cash flows that the app generates is going to go to the foundation. This is exactly the same for the NFT marketplace. So it's a very simple to understand, consistent model. And then in return, the foundation is going to steward all the on-chain infrastructure for the app, the same way it's doing that for the marketplace, all the liquidity, smart contracts, limit order systems, etc. And that means that basically the treasury controlled by TNSR token holders now benefits from cash flows from both the NFT marketplace and this new meme coin trading app. And really zooming out, what that means is that this is basically the only treasury in crypto that is an index on both NFTs and meme coins. Really an index on all kinds of long tail assets.
That's amazing. Wow. That's very cool. I want to dig into, I'm always thinking about like, oh, what's next? And you mentioned that, this is the start of the empire where you guys have, these 2 products and maybe more in the future. And I guess just because I have to ask, I know it's still very, very early. You just launched Vector and it's great success, but what other things have you been noodling on that maybe in some future period you could maybe build?
I think there's still a lot of design space we need to explore with Vector. I do think that if this social graph actually becomes useful and actually like there's a meaningful network of value that's created, then we can leverage that for, many, many things. So for example, you can leverage it for identity, where maybe there are actions in crypto that ideally you want to know, like, is there a single human behind it and can they back it with a bunch of reputation they built on chain? What if this becomes an identity provider? And it could be like a form of Sybil resistant. So what if you could leverage this network to do airdrops, where these protocols are trying to like figure out who's like multi-logging or who's using multiple wallets. Instead, you just ask them to connect a Vector account or a Vector profile, and they can claim their airdrop through that wallet. I guess obviously that's a very far off idea. Probably not going to go down that route until we win social and until we win, multiplayer finance. But I think I don't think it's necessarily like a third product. I think it's where can we take Vector.
That's really cool. All right. So, a lot of what we're talking about is the attention economy, NFTs, meme coins, etc. How are you going to keep these Web3 users where, a lot of them are driven by what's the cool thing, what's the hot thing, where are we at in the cycle, what the narrative is. And a lot of the users in Web3 are like, this is not a classification of any sense, but it's like so many of them are like, what's in this for me? I think they're the only users that are like expecting some grand, I don't know, something amazing from using a product where, users in Web2 don't really, they're like, oh, I'm just using this product because I like it or whatever. Users in Web3 are like, all right, like, how am I going to get, paid for this? How have you found that characterization to be? Is that accurate? Is that inaccurate? And then in terms of like retention in this attention economy, how do you think of that?
Yeah, I think what you're touching on is really important. And this is for products. It's not necessarily about the quantity of users, it's about the quality of users. I'd rather have 100 organic users that actually like what your product is doing rather than 1,000 incentivized users. The poison of Web2 is ads. Like you can acquire users through ads. The poison of Web3 is airdrops. You can acquire users through airdrops. Leads to really bad users. For Vector explicitly, we've not run an incentives campaign from day one. All the users on the app are there because they actually like the product. We've made it very clear that we have no plans. And so we've just learned a lot of lessons from building our first product, which was the NFT marketplace, where we did run a very aggressive incentives campaign. And we're really trying to have the product incentivize the users on its own. And there's a lot of stuff you can still do. So for example, the earnings stuff we discussed, where it's like, hey, come to this product to make a lot of money. That's totally legit. And it's not an incentives program. It's just like, if you are using the product right, you manage to build an audience, you share good trades and you broadcast them, then people follow you and you make a lot of fees from that. And yeah, that's yours to take. Like there's nothing wrong with that, because that's basically evergreen. So that's how we're thinking about it.
Speaking of marketing and attention, who does your marketing? You guys have banging tweets. You guys have awesome videos that you guys are posting, like these cool like vector videos and whatnot. Who does that? Are you guys doing that in-house? You guys hire someone, and also, yeah, your tweets are also like always great as well. So yeah, who's doing that?
We've always been in-house. I don't think marketing agencies work in Web3 for the simple fact that, one, they're sort of an agent and you have this principal agent problem. And two, they're not deeply into your product and on stand up every single day, knowing what's going on with the product. And so they'll never be able to tell your story as well as someone in-house. I mean, early on in the days, it was just me and Ilja, right? Just bashing out tweets. Then we brought on a sort of marketing lead. And then most recently, we brought on basically a Twitter intern who ship posts for us on both Tensor and Vector all day. And then we also have someone who's working for us part-time, who's producing product marketing videos, where we actually go more in depth. We actually create a cool video of all the new features and all the new products that are, I guess, mainly features that are coming out in Vector, and try to blow it up. So it's primarily a learning process, but I would say like a Twitter intern by far.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I'm surprised to hear you say that you're not using some great marketing firm, but alternatively, it's crypto, and what you said makes total sense, where you have to be pretty native in order to get this stuff, in order to speak the language. So someone in-house is going to know 100x more than they would than some third party. What are your guys' views on raising venture capital? Because obviously, I invest. You guys have raised rounds and whatnot, but I also caution people about venture capital at the same time, because it is kind of a deadly addiction, in some sense.
Well, I think the first question that every founder needs to know the answer to is, what kind of business do you want to build? If you want to build a lifestyle business, the last thing you should do is raise venture. And by the way, lifestyle business doesn't have to be 5K a month. It could be like 10 million a year. Like, you could argue the NFT marketplace right now for us is a lifestyle business. This thing makes 10 million a year. You could probably run it with 3 people. And yeah, at that point, like, what do you want? Like, it's just like, you don't need investor money. It's just like putting cash and having a nice life. If you do want to build a bigger company, typically you need venture money for 2 reasons. Number one is you actually need money in the bank to hire a lot of smart people, move very fast. Number two is strategic alignment. Certain investors come with the right connections, with the right ideas, even with the right research. Like, a lot of investors offer that kind of stuff. And even the right brand, right? It's a lot easier to convince a high-flying engineering hire from a Web2 company to join you if you have Paradigm and Andreessen, like a really good name on your cap table. So that's where venture comes into play. The thing in crypto, I will say, is crypto, unlike Web2, actually offers you 2 things. Number one, it offers you insane leverage as a founder. Like Pump Fund guys, DAOs.fun, us, like your next favorite 5 consumer products in crypto, we're literally 2 dudes in pajamas for like a year. And so if you can build the first version with 2 dudes in pajamas, and at that point you start making money because it's crypto, like, why didn't you venture? The leverage in this industry is insane. But the second thing about crypto is there's actually alternative funding mechanisms that don't exist in Web2. DAOs are fun. Again, going back to that example, AI16Z just raised there, and now they will never need to raise venture because they've just funded themselves for the next gazillion years. And so you have these other interesting alternatives to raise money from basically your own users, and you should leverage them if they make sense for your business model. So no black and white answer, but I think crypto, unlike other industries, really gives you a lot more freedom.
That makes total sense. Moat. Crypto, I feel like people will make one great product and the next day there's 50 copycats. So tell me how you guys think about moat.
I think the biggest thing with crypto, unlike Web2, especially with protocols and smart contracts, is that by nature, and it's sort of the ethos, is that you can easily compose and build on top of other people's work. And that's great. I think that's the ethos of open source in Web 2. And a lot of consumer companies and just businesses in Web 2, billion-dollar unicorns, have just built their entire stack on, open source software. And I think that's the case with crypto as well. But instead, the thing that's transferable here are people's identity, or I guess people's assets, and where they can take it with them. And so it's actually quite easy. And maybe speaking a little bit from experience here, it's actually quite easy for someone to move from one marketplace to another because you can easily compose away those transactions to another UI and sort of like take customers away from the existing platform. And so beyond maybe just out of habit, people might continue using your product. I think the next big moat in crypto will be trying to build proprietary data that lives off chain. That's kind of like contrarian to maybe what most people think crypto is all about. But I think that is going to be the predominant way that Web3 companies will build a moat. So for us, it is the social graph. These people that are following each other on Vector, it's going to be very difficult for a competitor to come in and try to take this away. Yes, they could try some, tricks like trying to, download our social graph and basically on using that in their new platform. But I think that's a lot harder to execute than in theory it is to do that. And it's very hard for just someone to get that data by just routing a bunch of transactions because we don't actually have anything on chain. We just route directly to dexes. And so there's nothing there on chain that you can just vampire attack away. And so I would say like this off chain data that we're building with these profiles, with this broadcast activity, with these off chain messages that are attached to every trade.
Very cool. That's awesome. Yeah, no, that is a very contrarian take. Off chain data, right? Off chain data mode. Like that's the first time I've heard anything like that. So that's very, very interesting. All right. So where do you guys see the future of crypto headed? I know it's a super broad question, but we have a new administration who's pro crypto versus the last administration was pretty anti crypto. So there's going to be hopefully some changes there. But yeah, where do you guys see that the future of our ecosystem is going?
I have two thoughts. Number one is I don't think people appreciate the Cambrian explosion of assets that's going to happen in the next 5-10 years. We went from a world where there were assets counted in the hundreds, maybe thousands, created by investment banks, super guarded, 3 months long release process, can only be done by like a handful of humans on planet Earth, to a world where a dude in any country in the world, Russia, India, Belarus, whatever, can create an asset and pump fund in 3 seconds, and it goes higher than the bond issuance worked on by Goldman Sachs in like 20 seconds. That changes everything. It just resets the playing field where the old competitive modes that exist in TradFi just become irrelevant. And so what that means is that literally last cycle, I think there were like hundreds of thousands of assets. Right now, you can trade millions of assets on Vector. Next cycle, like in 4 years, you'll be able to trade billions, maybe trillions of assets. And that changes just what the meaning of an asset and like how you even think about it, and what does a chart even mean to you, because there's like so many of them, you can't consume them anymore as easily. So I think that's the first tectonic shift that's going to happen to the world because of crypto. The consequence of that tectonic shift is you can't possibly trade all of these assets based on fundamentals anymore. It's just too much information for any human being to consume. And so what's going to start happening is a lot more assets are going to be attention assets, socially traded assets. It's no longer about like, does Fartcoin have the right fundamentals? It's about, are my 5 friends aping into it? Well, I should probably too. That's our entire thesis for Vector, which is the world is going to become hyper financialized. And in that world, you need these social signals to survive. It's no longer a nice to have, it's a must have. So I think that's what's going to happen to the world. And just very quickly on the administration, I mean, super bullish. I think the crypto is basically going to come back to the West. And I think the US has once again a chance of being a leader. It was critically going to, like, obviously going to be a critical industry in the future. 2 years ago, I was really scared that all of this was going to go to the East. And now I think they have a fighting chance.
Awesome. Richard, do you have anything to add there?
No, I think I agree with those. Those are probably the 2 biggest waves.
Yeah, and I guess, yeah, you're right about there's millions of assets now, and really the only way, and like flows are so much more important than last cycle. Because last cycle was like, hey, I'm just gonna get a basket of alts and I'm gonna sit back and I'll go 5-10x. And this cycle is like, no, the flow is like what narrative, what coins, what are my friends doing is of utmost importance. And yeah, when there's billions and trillions of different tokens and assets floating around, that's going to be even more important. So that makes total sense to me. All right, guys, this was amazing. Thank you so much. But it's time for the closing questions. All right, Ilya, what is the price of Bitcoin 1 year from now? So that is February of 26.
250K.
Ooh, wow. I dig it. I love it. All right. What book, movie, podcast, TV show, etc., just some piece of content that had a major impact on you? Let's go, Ilya.
I think everybody should read the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. He just teaches you a lot of the right mental models about the world.
And also he says it like the way that he refines the information is kind of, it's memorable. It's very like tweet size. So it's great. That's awesome. Richard?
There's a book called The Idea Factory, basically chronologues the history of Bell Labs. And that's like one of the best reads if you want to get a history.
All right, Richard, what has surprised you the most about your journey so far?
I think the most surprising thing is it feels like it's been quite a long journey. We basically pivoted technically 3 times, built 2 different products that got to, majority market share. Well, the first product got to majority market share. We're hopefully going to get to majority market share with the second product. It feels longer than it actually is. But I think everything in crypto just moves so fast. It almost feels like we've been through 2 lifetimes when it's only been like 1.5 cycles.
So true. Ilya?
For me, it's like every 3 months, I basically discover that 3 months ago I was retarded. Like it's kind of insane how fast you learn as a founder, and you just can't believe some of the decisions you made, even like 6 months ago. You're like, wow, really? I can't believe that was my mental model of the world. Yeah, I'm consistently surprised that every 3 months I'm like, I can't believe I did that.
That's hilarious. I love that. All right, last question. What belief or mindset shift has had the biggest impact on your life? And we'll go with Richard.
I think people don't ask enough questions or hard questions enough. As in, people may not always be as intellectually honest as they could be. And I think it's good to literally question every single detail. Why are you doing things a certain way? Why do we have to do this legal thing? Like, is it actually necessary, or is this just what our lawyers are telling us? That's just like one example. But I think over time we've learned just by interacting and building a company is that that's the only way to get to truth, which is the number one and most important thing when it comes to doing a startup, is finding truth and making sure you're not fooling yourself. Otherwise you end up with basically 3-4 years of just working on nothing that never pans out. So I think everyone can apply that through their life, where just question is this actually necessary?
Ilya, do you have a differing thought?
Yeah, I'd say for me, it's probably understanding that virtually always in life, less is more. Like I think Steve Jobs would always say this, like, you really need to say no to like 99 things to say yes to one thing. What most people don't appreciate is how many things you have to say no to. It's not just the bad stuff. It's not just the mediocre stuff. You actually have to say no to good stuff, to really focus on the great stuff. And it's incredibly hard. But once you kind of adopt that mindset, you see it everywhere. Like Mark Twain used to say, I would write you a short letter, but I didn't have time, so I wrote you a long letter. That's very true about everything. Product building, investor communications, marketing, BD, like job postings. Anybody can write a job posting with 74 bullets. Try writing one with 3. But once you can condense your thinking to 3 bullets, whoever reads that, they go like, okay, that's all there is. And they really start to think about those 3 bullets because that's all there is. It just focuses people's attention. So I think for me, the biggest shift in the last like 5 years has been like, okay, less is more in the world, that you really need to learn to condense stuff into the few things that matter.
Ilya, Richard, thank you so much, guys. This was stellar. Where can people find you and learn more about Tensor, learn more about Vector?
Probably our socials on X. That's the place where we broadcast most announcements. Vector.fun @vector.dot.
I have a different answer. Download Vector and say hi in Intercom in Vector. Our mods will be very happy to dig through hundreds of tickets. I'm kidding. But yeah, maybe Andrew, we can give you a code when you release the episode so that your listeners can get access to Vector and try the app.
That'd be awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for having us.